On this episode of Carnage, we've decided to go old school. Not with 1200 horsepower, but with 1200 cc's. 1256 to be precise. Okay, so if you're still with us, our mission this week is to give this 1256cc powerhouse a bit of a freshen up. I've got all these gaskets, like I've got a rocket cover gasket, an exhaust and intake. There's a separate gasket, exhaust and intake. And even a head gasket and valve stem seals. I've got all these things here. All this cost me $28. Yeah. Practically giving it away. Some of these gasket sets are quite old. That one's 2009. I think one of these ones was 2005. So yeah, that set's 20 years old. Yeah, some of this stuff's been sitting on the shelf for a while. So we'll take all the ancillaries off, give it a clean up. I'm going to pull the rocker cover off. Have a look inside. I'm still debating whether I pull the head or not. I mean, I have a head gasket there, and it would be nice to do the valve stem seals because it's nothing worse than, you know, giving an engine a birthday and then firing it up and finding out that just oil leaks into the exhaust and causes you all sorts of dramas. We don't want that. But let's make it clean and tidy before it goes back in the car, so that when we go for registration with this thing, they open the bonnet, they go, sure, nice and clean and tidy, tick. And then later on we can pull it out and put something else in there. But for the meantime, this will get us through. So let's get started. So a few people might be saying, Scott, why are you bothering with this? Why? Well, A, that's to get the car registered to start off with. But B, like, it's kind of interesting working with this old technology, and everyone should. If you're interested in cars and engines, it does not get much more basic than this. If you want to understand how an engine works, something like this is a great place to start. Because, yeah, like I said, this is at the core of simple engines. Yeah, this is right up there. Doesn't get much more simple than this. They come, like this is a 1256cc Torana engine. They sold them as 1300s. They did make a 1200cc one, which I believe was 1159 cc's. They didn't make a lot of power. They were available in high compression and low compression versions. There was only like 5 horsepower difference between those two versions. I think the low compression was 41 and the high compression was 46 or something like that horsepower. Not a lot of power when you think about it. So these things would have been, they would have struggled to get out of their own way out on the road. And I mean, you got to think of the time. It's 1974. There's no real freeways. I mean, there might have been 1 or 2 freeways in Australia at that point. I think probably the M4 might have existed in, or F4 it would have been back in those days, might have existed in Sydney. I'm not sure. Might have been something heading up north towards Newcastle at that point as well. But yeah, there wasn't a lot in terms of big open wide freeways at that stage. It would have been a lot of tight little roads going everywhere in Australia, most of them dirt. It was a different time, that's for sure. And then, you know, like I said, you had low compression and high compression. The low compression version would have been to run on standard fuel, which was the thing back then. You had standard, you had super, that's all you had. Oh, you had diesel, you know, but diesel was very much, that was like a truck thing, you know, maybe some four-wheel drives, but mainly trucks ran on diesel back then. Standard fuel was very much, you know, for low compression engines, you had to have a compression ratio of like 8.5 to, you know, 7.5 to 1 to run on standard fuel. It did not like anything higher than that. If you had higher compression than that, you needed to run on super, which was more expensive. But, you know, this is all leaded petrols back in the day, and then leaded petrol all went away, and God, when was that? 86? Yeah, and that's when we started to get RB30s and a lot of EFI cars and stuff like that. So, yeah, little history lesson. Tiny little distributor, just with a little blade on it. It's pretty standard for the time. That is cool. And just try and keep some of that dirt out, I think. It's very black. I wonder when this had an oil change last, because yeah, I'm not sure it was this century. So that's our basic little engine right there. We're going to go a bit further. We're going to take the exhaust manifold off, intake off. I mean, it's an interesting arrangement. Look at where this tiny little intake feeds down, straight down into the head, and then exhaust straight off the side. I think only two of these, I think it goes the carby down into 2 ports, which then feed 4 cylinders, and then exits through the 3 exhaust ports. You know, of course the middle Siamese, but it really doesn't get much more basic, does it? The water pump is stuffed, so one of the things that we've got to do, we've taken the water pump off the old motor, which looked to be in fairly good condition. So we're going to use that. And then we'll start pulling the rocker cover. I'm still deciding about the sump, but let's give it a clean up first. Oil filter, all that sort of stuff. It's got a unique sort of oil filter housing. But yeah, it's interesting how they did things back in the day. I'm not saying it's better, but it's certainly simpler. So let's see if this job's about to get a lot harder. I'm going to undo this exhaust manifold. Hopefully no bolts break, because if it does, this job just got a lot harder. Nice, nice, nice. Yep. 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 Yeah. Well, that's a win right there. I mean, these bolts probably have not been undone for 50 years. Legitimately. I'm just wondering how much asbestos is in that. All right, I thought there was only 2 bolts holding this on, but seems to be a little bit more stuck than that. I don't want to use levers on it or anything like that, because I'm guessing it's pretty fragile. But I'm going to take the carby off and have a look and see if there's a bolt straight down through the intake manifold or something like that. That would be awkward. Matt and I were just talking about asbestos and how it used to be such a thing in our lives, in terms of like it was just, you know, this wonder material that helped insulate places, and you know, we're building our houses out of it and putting it in our roof cavities. In fact, I used to live in a little town called Holbrook, and that area, in that surrounding sort of New South Wales area, they had a guy come through and did a lot of roof insulation, and it all had asbestos in it, and then after we left, the government came through and inspected every house in town, and any house that had this insulation in it got compulsorily acquired and torn down. Yeah. Yep, there's a bolt in there. A tiny little intake manifold. Look at it. So there's just two intake ports, as I mentioned before, and then you've got these little ports come out, and they're just like, I think they're exhaust ports that, they connect to the center exhaust port, and they basically heat the intake manifold up for cold weather starts and stuff like that, I think. But yeah, pretty basic design. I just actually went and read some specs, and apparently there was a Brabham Torana. This was back in the HB range, so you know, your late 60s, and they had twin side draft Strombergs on it, and they made like 79 horsepower, and that sort of I went 79 horsepower, that seems like a massive upgrade, because that was even on the smaller engine, the 1159cc engine. They reckoned 79 horsepower. I'm like, and I said 46 horsepower for this before, but it turns out I might have been reading kilowatts. So it's actually 63 horsepower is the official figure for these engines. Still not a massive upgrade, but 63 sounds a lot better than 46, doesn't it? And when you compare them to the six-cylinder Toranas of the day, like your most basic six-cylinder Torana was the 138 powered one, you know, so 2250cc. I think they were like 90 horsepower anyway, so they were a massive power increase from these, and those things were a bit of a slug. So yeah, they had a lot of engine options for those Toranas. I've got to say, they had a 1200, a 1300, you had the 1760cc four-cylinder, you had a 138, 161, a 173, the 186, you know, in your GTRs, and then by the time the LJs come around, you had 202s. So many different engine options. It's crazy. Nuts. Anyway, all right, let's keep going. All right, water pump off, filter off, and then we'll give it a bit of a degrease and see where we go from there. I don't think that's doing it right. Wow. That one snapped off as well. What is going on with that? No wonder they all snapped. Some gratuitous shifter action, just to keep everyone happy, keep them all satisfied. Oh, that's an ugly looking sensor. Here we go with a degreaser. Well, that one's missing. That one's still there. That one's fallen apart. You can see half of it. That one's missing. That one's missing. All right. we're going to have to deal with valve stem seals. So the question is, do we, pull the head? I think we're going to have to. Because I haven't got a tool for doing it on the head for this type of motor. Although, there might be a way. Well, we've got to pull a rocker gear anyway, so let's pull the rocker gear and we'll go from there. Interesting. Good old stamp steel rockers. Wow, like, that feels terrible. Wow. They do, they just float on this spring arrangement. It's like this very soft spring sits on that and it just floats, and then you just lock it down to a certain amount of, wow. Just a certain amount of clearance. That's not optimal. Check out the push rods. That's how short they are. They're tiny. All right, I guess we're pulling the head. I don't want to hurt myself. There we go. So the paint on this thing actually isn't too bad considering, but we will give it a touch up, we'll give it a respray, make it look all nice again. But yeah, it's not too bad. I've still got a little bit of work to do here on the deck face, but it's getting pretty clean. I decided to pull the front pulley off. I won't say balancer because there's no rubber in it, it's just the steel hub that actually slides in there, and it was just held on by a bolt. Undid the bolt and just pulled the hub straight off. So there's no real balancer on it at all. But yeah, it's all coming together. I do have to find a manual for a 4-cylinder Torana, so I think we're going to leave it there today. I'm going to make some phone calls, see who's got a manual for a 4-cylinder Torana, and we'll move on from there. So check back with us tomorrow and we'll hook back into it. Right, so this morning we're going to clean up and disassemble the cylinder head and change the valve stem seals. So it's not a bad looking little head for a fairly archaic engine. I mean, it's closed chamber, yes, cast iron, not much you can do about that. It was the 60s, or the 60s when it was designed. But yeah, not a bad little head, other than the fact that the ports go down, straight down. So pull the plugs. So we've got the head mostly cleaned up at the moment. I'm just going to pull out this pipe from the top to make the head a little bit easier to manage. And then we'll pop the valves out and do these valve stem seals. It's kind of important not to have oil running down the valve stem into the cylinder and making your exhaust all smoky. Shoulder is not working. Oh wow, it's really... All right, that one moves. Okay. Okay. So we've started pulling the valves and springs out of the head. We've run into a couple problems. One is the collets in the retainers of some of the valves are so tightly jammed in there that they don't want to release. I've never had that happen before, but I've got to say this is not the best spring compressor. But we also noticed, well, two, how much gunk there is in the exhaust bowl area. That's probably from the burning of the oil and, you know, because of the valve stem seals have been stuffed. Burns oil, ends up carboning up all the exhaust bowls. That's fine, we can clean that out. But the real problem here is look at the difference between the retainer heights of these valve springs. So what's happened here is we've got really bad valve recession on this cylinder, and so it's changed the height of the valve, and you know it's also going to really hurt the flow of that cylinder because the valve's buried right down into the head. So it really needs to be reconditioned, which we don't really want to spend any serious money on this thing. So what I might do is I'm going to drag the other motor out, quickly whip the head off and just see if it's better or worse than this one. If it's better than this one, we may be using the other head. But anyway, we'll sit that there for the moment and we'll go get the other head. Hopefully it's better, because it kind of sucks that I've spent a heap of time cleaning this and getting it all ready. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing a full valve seat job here in the shop, and I don't really want to spend any money on this thing. So, all right, we'll go grab the other head. Lucky they're small. This is a different exhaust manifold, I think. Oh, that's a totally different manifold. This one actually looks a lot better. I wonder what that's off, because it's got twin outlets and everything. Performance, baby. I think we just gained some horsepower. All right, let's get it off there. So I'm just having a bit of a look across the valves and the retainers. They're all pretty level, so this one shouldn't have the same problems that one has. But I guess we won't know until we whip it off, so let's whip it off, or whip it out. I wonder. Yeah, they are different. Look at that. Different threads. So these use a fine thread on the head bolt, and these have got a coarse thread. In fact, the bolt's narrower. Okay. Better check that. Oh no. Oh no. The bolts don't go through the head. All right, I'm gonna have to look this up, I think. Okay, so I've had a quick little look on the net, and apparently, yeah, in 1970 they changed the diameter of the head bolts, which means that engine is not from that car. That is not the original engine from the black car, because the black car is 1974. There's no way that a pre-1970 engine got stuck in that car from the factory. So I wonder if it's even a 1256. Well, I guess we got the head undone. Let's lift it and see what the bore size is, because yeah, maybe it's a baby one. And maybe, maybe this has all gone a little bit pear-shaped. Okay, well that lifted easy. Right, so just eyeballing it, I think it's smaller, or we think it's smaller. But let's run the vernier over it. So the bore size is around 77 mil. Yep, it's a lot different. Yeah, so it's 5 mil bigger in the bore size. Liar! You are not a 1256 at all. I'm pretty sure that's an 1159. So yeah, it's weird, isn't it? They call the 1200 and 1159, and the 1300 is 1256. Holden was taking the piss a little bit, I think. But yeah. So the little black car did not have the original engine in it all along. And now we're kind of screwed. Yeah, it's a larger gap between the valves. So it's quite close there, and then there's like quite a bit of a distance there. Yeah, there's not a lot in it. There's only a couple mil in it, but they're definitely bigger. On the intake at least. What about the exhaust? Exhaust looks about the same. So it looks like I'm going to make some phone calls. We're going to make some discussions on where this car's heading and what we really want to do. I mean, we wanted to put some rego on it so we could make it a running, driving car, which at that point we could choose to do up or to sell. But do we need it registered? Don't know. That's a decision that comes from above me. So I'm going to make some phone calls, see where we're going to go with this thing, see what we're going to do, because yeah, our options are right now drill out the head bolt holes on this one, but there's a massive difference in those bolt sizes. Like the bolts didn't look too much different there, but you look at the head bolt sizes between these two heads, massive difference. And then, all right, so that gets that head on the engine and we can, you know, get it registered like that. Or we can put that head back on the small motor, maybe do valve stem seals, all that sort of stuff on that. I mean, it's the worst running of the two engines, but again, we could make that happen. But it all feels like a massive waste of time right now, doesn't it? And we haven't even decided what we're doing with the car. It's hard to get a decision out of anyone right now. So we need to firm up our plans on what we want to do with this thing, and then work out how we're going to get there. So I'm going to make some calls. So I've had a bit of a chat to the boss, and I think we're going to abandon the plan of the rattle can rebuild. There doesn't seem much point into putting money into this thing if we don't actually want to keep this engine. You know, like, it was purely to get the car running and registered so we could do a dodgy rego later with other engine options and all that sort of thing. But I think we're going to pivot away from that now. I mean, to make this engine work, we're going to have to spend money on it, and we don't want to. Not really. So we think money could be spent better elsewhere. So we've been faffing around with this whole Torana idea for a while now. Ever since we bought it, we never really had a clear plan. I originally wanted to put a 2JZ in it. However, we ended up using that 2JZ in the Volvo, and ever since that, we've never had a real clear plan of what we're going to do with the Torana. I did postulate the idea of sticking that Hemi V8 into it, but that's just, it's such a massive motor in that little car. It's not going to fit right. It's going to take a massive amount of re-engineering of the front end of the car to make that work. So we're better off picking a suitable engine, probably a 4-cylinder engine. And let's face it, any modern 4-cylinder engine is going to make a lot more power than these engines made. So we need your help. What 4-cylinder engine should we use to put in our little Torana? You know, so Toyota make a bunch of good ones. Actually, there's a whole bunch of good 4-cylinders out there, but you also got to think budget as well. We want something that is cheap to get, you know, so they don't really bring in a lot of engines from Japan anymore, so we're going to have to buy something here in a car and pull it out and stick it in this thing and make it work somehow. It's just the way it's going to have to be. So, but our budget is going to be tight, so we need to keep something under budget. Let us know what your thoughts are. 4-cylinder that can fit in that little Torana and make it go fast. If it's a manual, if we end up with a manual, then we'll make it something that can go fast around corners. If it's an auto, then we'll make it something that goes fast in a straight line. But either way, it should be a bit of fun and should be hopefully exciting. I'm kind of sick of faffing around with this little geriatric 60s technology. Let's put some modern technology into this thing. Let's do it right. And let us know what you think. And we'll let you know what our decision is on a future episode of Carnage.